people are like snowflakes. No two are alike. Our individuality will always prove this right. We move in chosen circles, feeling secure in our own space, not wanting to realize the world is a bigger place. For some, it's too unfortunate when they decide to stand alone, believing the issue won't affect them until it finally hits home. It's so easy and so simple to stay in our own town, but true success is measured in finding common ground.
Good morning, and welcome to another edition of Common Ground. Throughout the month of February, Black history has been the subject of discussion. Hopefully this discussion has enlightened, motivated, and stimulated each and every one of us to some serious soul-searching in recognizing and improving the unjust conditions that exist for Black people in this country and the world. As the producer and host of Common Ground, I wanted to bring to you, the viewer, the good, the bad, and the ugly of Black history. For those of you who saw the earlier shows dedicated to Black history, I'll let you make the call. For those who didn't, here's a recap.
Africa is different in that for about 100 years, it was developed into portions that were owned by different national groups like the British, the French, the Spanish, the Germans. Therefore, each portion of Africa developed, as it were, according to the lines of the colonizer. So it is only since about 20, 30 years ago that we began to develop as one Africa. Before, you could never speak to your neighbor. You could only speak to him as a neighboring nation through your master, the colonizer, or the man who was over you as master. Therefore, through that we developed very sharp differences which we are just marrying together. That's one way. Another one is that although we are all Africans, we are made up of different ethnical groups and languages and cultural differences and characters and behavior.
In Africa, people speak different behavior patterns.
That's right.
But in the United States, that doesn't exist.
That's the difference, that if you go to a state like Nebraska, you are all Americans.
Right.
You all speak English. Some may speak a few other languages, but your language is English. You come to a country like Uganda. In it, there are about 48 tribes, and each tribe speaks a different language. And we are just beginning to build up a national understanding that we are all Ugandans. But you'll find...
Just in Uganda, though?
In Uganda, yes. If you get into Uganda, you'll find that each Ugandan, first of all, is a member of his ethnic group first, before he's a Ugandan. And unless he comes out as I am in America now, I see myself more as a Ugandan than a man of my tribe. But when I step back, there are many reminders that you're not a Ugandan. You belong to the Baganda tribe first, and then you are a Ugandan. And that's what we are trying to fight with, to build ourselves into the one state called the state of the Ugandans, without overlooking our own ethnic identities, but knowing that being Ugandans as a whole is greater than being your ethnic group, which you Americans have achieved.
Right.
Because any American I meet, whether it be black, or whether it be of the English origin or German or whatever you have it, when they are here, they are proud, they are Americans, and then later on something else where they came from.
You come from Africa and you say, well, the Americans in this country, you black Americans in this country, you have a lot of advantages that black Africans don't have.
Oh, yes.
All right. Black Americans say, okay, well, name one. Give me some of those advantages that you see that I might have as far as being a black American that you don't have being a black African.
A black American, first of all, is fully an American and has, in writing, all the rights that an American citizen has. And that's an advantage. Secondly, you've got availability of education. Any one of you can be educated to the highest level that is available in this country if one worked hard. And that's something. Thirdly, you are far better off economically when I come to any of your houses. However poor they are, I would say that is a rich man's house in Africa, what you call poorest here. And I think you have a better, a very advantageous place to start off being developed. You've already gone over the hurdles that we're still fighting. So I think all the advantages, many of them, are on your side. Certainly there is more competition here, but you've got means to compete with the rest. Equally, if you really you have the desire and the sacrificial spirit in it to do it, you need to go to Africa and teach your children that they must feel their roots are in Africa, they must love Africa, they must love to go to Africa, they must be bent to work to uplift the African continent, although they must be Americans first, but Americans with a great love for Africa.
Say the person in this country doesn't want to take the opportunity to go. Does that mean that the African who is here shouldn't take the opportunity to try to connect as well?
Most Africans here, who are here, are strangers. They are looking for their way. You've been born here. You know all the corners. Why don't you come and say, brother, you come from Uganda, come to me. Let's have coffee. Don't worry whether your coffee is not as good as the white man's. He'll have the coffee and will say, I've met this man. When he goes back to Africa, write him letters so that between you and them, there's a communication. Teach your children, these Africans are our brethren, and we must bring them in. In fact, I must say, the white man here has done more of showing a welcome to the African than the black people have done.
Yes.
And I wonder why.
I think that kind of slavery that existed here in the United States was new to the world. This was a far more insidious type slavery than had ever been recorded in the history of the world. The primary factors of that is that children were swept away from their parents, husbands were swept away from wives, individuals had no rights at all. The right to speak, the right to eat, those things didn't exist in American slavery. All the rights of being human were gifts from the slave owners. When we start talking about racism, we're talking about an attitude. We're talking about how one person views another with the idea of subjugating or in some way controlling that person strictly on the base of race, for no other reason. And if a white person say, I don't like black folk, that person, consciously or subconsciously, is a racist. Now, they can be a racist and not bother nobody, okay?
Okay.
It's when they start discriminating.
Right. Okay. You take it beyond just the fact that you have this prejudice.
Right.
You start acting it out.
Right. Right. Exactly.
And when you get into discrimination and segregation, things like that, that's when you start dealing with norms of behavior. That's when you start dealing with laws. And then what is manifested then is such terms and issues as the disadvantage. You get into the issue of isolation. the issue of avoidance. And that is a manifestation from the racism, the prejudiceness, and the discrimination.
Absolutely. And racism allows one to discriminate because racism says that this group of people is inferior, this group of people is incompetent. Someone has to call the shots here, and because they can't do it, we'll do it, and we're better.
Now,
that's dangerous.
But that's the society saying, given the permission for that control to happen.
Well, and that's when it becomes institutionalized.
There you go.
And when it becomes institutionalized, we have kids who are growing up in an environment that says, I cannot do something because I'm black. I'm not expected to do certain things because I'm black. And quite frankly, our country can't afford that.
You know, you were mentioning before the danger of racism, and that is where you start to believe that you are incapable, that you are inferior. And there are times when you're out there alone. I'm sorry, but that's the fact. And you have to do something. You don't have the group. If you feel that you have to depend upon the group in order to make it, that might cause you a problem.
Okay, I guess that's the point I wanted to make, is that as an individual, can you develop that strength?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to.
And we got beautiful models of people who have
We
done
do.
that.
Yes, we do.
That's right.
And if we don't, I guess I'll get back to telling the story. I think that's the reason why Martin Luther King is so important to us. Because here's a leader. Here's a person who personified the essence of coping and of winning.
Those people that have been watching at home are saying, yeah, I can relate to everything you're saying, but what am I supposed to do?
Go out and find some books that deal with our history, that deal with black issues, that deal with black philosophy.
Now, see, I started doing that, and I
philosophy.
started getting mad.
Talk to your mama and talk to your daddies and your aunts and your uncles and your cousins and talk to them about what used to happen.
Floral Creations by Twilla Z, located in the Business and Technology Center, is a flower shop and a whole lot more. Custom arrangements for all occasions, delivered anywhere. For your leisure wear, there's shades of black sportswear, greeting cards and stationery that speak a language of their own. It's all waiting for you at Floral Creations by Twilla Z, a flower shop and a whole lot more.
I oscillate between hope and despair for this world. But things will change, Sam. You wait and see. Things will change. One day somebody's gonna get up, give history a big kick up the backside, get it going again.
Like who?
Well, they're called social reformers. Every age, Sam, has got its social reformer. My history book is full of them.
So where's ours?
Good question. And I hate to say it, But the answer is I don't know.
So we just go on waiting.
Yeah, looks like it.
I just don't like the idea of having things just thrown away because no one wants them. And I think that was the basis of starting a museum. When I went to the Nebraska Historical Society in the 1960s, they just had almost nothing about black people. So I felt that there was a lack of material and information. When a person wanted to read or know more about black Nebraskans, there was just didn't seem to be anything. There was just a big void. And I think this building and the purpose of the museum fills that void. And it's proven every single day when people need information, want information, have to have information, pictures, visual information, whatever it is, they do feel now that there is a place where they might be able to find what they want.
In regard to black power for many of us, particularly during the era of the 60s as well as the 70s and even through certain parts of the 80s, meant a number of things. But for me particularly, black power was the relationship in terms of black people, taking pride in first being who they are and from where they came, understanding the historical value of a racial society within a governmental system exclusively and inherent within America in itself. I think for the most part, black power represents the empowerment of people to make decisions and to affect the laws that have been fought for over generations in terms of them being applied directly for the benefit of black people as a culture, black people as a race, and black people on an individual basis. In the 60s, when black power was fostered very strongly, we had certain things to identify with that was what we considered to be our own. That being the colors, the red, the black, the green. That being wearing the afro. That being wearing dashikis, taking pride in African culture, African artwork. Understanding how those contributions, not only in terms of America, have benefited black people, but other races as well. We know, as a matter of fact, that the benefits of the world have been basically contrived and carved out of the motherland, and that being Africa. We have to understand that we have to take all the degradation as examples and samples of how the intelligence and the integrity of a people can be depressed, but yet at the same time revived. In today's terminology, in using the word black power, many people are afraid of that term because it rings nomenclatures of the past that they may not necessarily want to identify with or associate with. We as a people have fostered the integrity of black power as we have tried to make accomplishments in the areas of education, employment, industry, business, medicine, and a number of other contributory levels within our society as a whole. We have yet to understand that black power is intrigued and very entrenched with each of us as individuals. First, knowing where we are, where we intend to go based on where we've came from. Power is that which is embraced among us as individuals and then collectively among our families and then within our communities all the way down to the neighborhood level. Power is entrenched in the church from which we have learned our spiritual values, and our spiritual values are passed on generation after generation after generation. When we look at the total class structure of black America, particularly in my generation, I remember the beginnings of the NAACP and the Urban League in terms of what it was taught and how it was taught to me to be a part of, a class of people that had something to strive for. I understand the beginnings of the Urban League. We now have so much disenfranchisement within our own community that it's hard for us to agree collectively on specific issues as it relates to the empowerment of our people, which is in essence true black power.
How do you get this black power mentality embedded in their daily activities?
Certainly we need more education, Jim. One of the pitfalls in Americanism now is, as it relates to blacks and minorities, is there is not enough education of the people.
Well, now, what do you mean by education?
Cultural, historical, contemporary education in terms of self-appreciation. No, I'm talking about education of oneself, to one's history, not only this American history, but our African history, as Stacy spoke of earlier. Our rich, very rich African traditions, our culture that has made an influence upon all vestiges and all aspects of the world internationally. Mm-hmm. We have to instill that into our children. We have to take more time to even remind ourselves of what we have accomplished as a people. That's very, very important, because even if we aspire economically and we become successful economically or politically or socially, in all those other areas, and if we're lacking with a sense of spirit and a sense of beauty and what is right, it'll all be in vain, because righteousness is power.
I'd like to thank my guests and all the people behind the scene who helped make this show possible. Hopefully, through the information presented, you have developed a greater understanding and higher sensitivity to a race of people who have and continue to endure much hardship, but will still work hard to contribute much to this great nation. Until next week, I'm Jim Nelson, your host for Common Ground. Thank you for watching.